trip.
Kevin Blackistone, David Dennis Jr., Jen Latta in her second career around the horn. Welcome back, Jen. And the pilot of this plane flying the Florida Keys, black market exotic birds, Woody Page. What a look, Woody. NBA news of the day, J.J. Redick, the new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll talk about it around the horn. Wow. Woody, you're the next generation of Jimmy Buffett. It's an incredible look. More points for you. I love it.
I am the new generation.
We start with the news of the day. The Los Angeles Lakers hiring J.J. Redick to be their head coach. It's coming suddenly, gradually, and then suddenly again. 4-year deal. Redick said to be building a staff around him. Jen Latta, we heard a lot of names during this search. Maybe even you thought Monty Williams, when he was fired by Detroit yesterday, would be a name today the Lakers might be interested in. But no, it's J.J. Redick. It's official. How do you review?
Well, it makes a lot of sense from a timing standpoint, as the NBA Finals just wrapped up, where JJ was doing his broadcasting duties. The NBA draft is next week. I think ideally you want the coach in place before you start selecting players for the future. This is going to be a learning curve for JJ, though. He becomes the 8th head coach since Phil Jackson back in 2010-2011 for the Lakers franchise, which means that they have now gone over and over and over again with new coaches while LeBron has been there. JJ Redick doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's been complimented on his ability to connect with players. I have no doubt that will be something that he excels in and succeeds in. But being a head coach in the NBA is a tough job. He's going to have to surround himself with experience, or else you are going to end up the situation like they had here in Milwaukee, where they hired a first-time head coach in Adrian Griffin, who was way out over his skis, who clashed with some of the more experienced head coaches like Terry Stotts. He will have to check his ego as he manages the egos of NBA players.
He doesn't know what he doesn't know. Bars from Jen Latta. David Dennis Jr. on the Lakers hiring J.J. Redick.
I do know something that J.J. Redick doesn't know, which is he admitted to early in the finals when he said that he didn't know about an out-of-bounds rule live on the broadcast. That is alarming about a dude coming into coaching. That's a sign of a guy with no experience. This is the 4th coach that LeBron has had in his 7 years as the Los Angeles Lakers. 6 of the last 7 coaches LeBron has had have coached less than 2 years or less. LeBron needs some experience, needs some stability there. The word that I'm circling for this whole thing is circus. This has been a circus of an offseason for this Lakers team, and hiring somebody that is your franchise player's podcast buddy, essentially, without doing the due diligence, because there's Monty Williams just became available, and he is a more qualified, or at least has a resume of somebody who's way more qualified than J.J. Redick right now. Without doing that due diligence, going directly to Redick, seems like this could be, a recipe for another coaching disaster in Los Angeles.
Okay. There has been history of former players, of course, Redick in the league for a decade and a half, who have made the jump straight to coaching with some success. Jason Kidd, we just saw in the NBA Finals with others. Steve Nash and the disaster in Brooklyn recently. Kevin Blackistone, turn to you on the Lakers and J.J. Redick.
Sure, and that's what I was going to say. The NBA, probably more than any other sport, has experimented with players going straight to the coaching seat without having been a coach before. I mean, there are a ton of guys that have done that. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson even come to mind when we're talking about
varying degrees of success there, too. Yeah.
Exactly, and it comes with varying degrees of success. I would say, though, that if I'm a Lakers fan, I just hope that the front office did make a call to Monty Williams, because you do have a guy there who is experienced, who did very well when he was in Phoenix. I know he just won 14 games with the Detroit Pistons, but that's the worst team in the league the last 15 years. He wasn't going to be able to turn that around with that roster overnight. So if that's the case, then they got to roll with this guy, and I don't think it's a horrible thing. I mean, look, J.J. Redick is a respected basketball player in the pros. He was at Duke, obviously. Apparently, the Lakers have been talking to Coach K as an unofficial resource to help guide them in this search, and I think that's all good.
And Woody Page.
Well, I think the first thing he has to do is follow that Larry Bird kind of philosophy, where he went out and got 3 veteran assistant coaches, and that really made a difference, I think, in Bird's career as a coach in Indiana. Steve Nash, on the other hand, went for some of his pals, and it didn't work out well in Brooklyn. But I would have kicked the tires, Jen would probably agree with me, on Monty Williams. I think if you brought him in just to see if maybe he would be the lead assistant. You wouldn't have to pay him much. The guy's getting $65 million if you weren't going to hire him as head coach. So I think this works out, although there are going to be questions all along the way of whether this is going to work out for him and because of the podcast. Does the podcast continue with James and JJ?
Okay, all right. Jen, I'll give you the last word after the horn.
Yeah, I have no doubt that JJ Redick is going to rise to this challenge. He's a competitor. He loves being challenged. I'm sure he's going to work his tail off in this role. But if they don't put talent on the court, it doesn't matter how well he coaches. You're going to have a situation like Monty Williams, 14 wins because you don't have the talent to compete in the West.
Talk a little bit more about that. Does LeBron James stay in Los Angeles? He is a free agent to be. And then there was the question, would he follow his son where his son gets drafted? Do the Lakers draft Bronny? Well, some window, some visibility into that this week with agent Rich Paul squashing the idea that LeBron would sign via free agency with whoever drafts Bronny. I ask you, national panel, what does that mean? What's really in play here? How do you interpret that, David Dennis Jr., around the horn to you?
What's really at play is Rich Paul and LeBron James coming together and realizing that their approach to the Bronny James professional career needed a course correction. This idea of attaching LeBron to Bronny and saying Bron's going to go where he goes and they want to play together, I think was actually a negative for Bronny's NBA prospects because it brings so much baggage, it brings so much drama to a kid who we actually do not know how good he is. He didn't play, he came off the bench last year in college, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be anywhere near the first round. So they have, teams that are looking at him. Rich Paul wants to put him in a position where he could be, a help to a championship team or somebody who's a contender, a la Lively, who of course was a 12 pick and is not going to be in the second round like Bronny, but they want him in that sort of situation and distancing himself from the LeBron James, sort of entertainment thing about this is going to help Bronny in the long run.
Can they do that? You call it a course correction. Jen, what do you call this?
I'm supposed to believe after all these years of looking down the street to see LeBron James and his son potentially play together, all of a sudden LeBron is going to let go and let God. He's going to let Jesus take the wheel when it comes to his son's future. I'm not buying it. I understand that Rich Paul says he is going to look at the teams that have genuine interest, real interest in Bronny. Well, Minnesota has real interest. Dallas has real interest. Toronto has real interest. And yet they can't even sniff Bronny for a workout. That to me says you are not doing your due diligence. You are not putting your client in the best position to succeed. You're trying to dictate this thing like the Wizard of Oz back there with the levers and the buttons, and there's no guarantee that the teams you think are going to be the best fit for him in actuality will be. There's so much turnover in the NBA. So I think they're doing a disservice to this young man who, by the way, what did he average, like 5 points in college, 3 rebounds? 2 assists. I might be over-exaggerating those statistics.
I hear what you're saying.
There's a reason why
that
people
point has
don't
been said.
know what this kid can do. We haven't seen enough.
But you think there's more in what they're doing than what they're saying here, right? They're not taking the workouts with teams. What does that mean? Woody Page, I'll open it up to you.
Well, if his name were Ronnie James instead of Bronny, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we've been talking about
No, wait. I think it's the James part of it that makes it a Ronnie, it would still be a Ronnie James deal, maybe. Okay, now I see what you're doing. All right, let's go, please.
We're talking about a guy that normally would be drafted 55th, where the Lakers have a pick, and would get a two-way deal and probably end up in the G League where he could get some more training. He shot 27%.
Well, that's been something they've also said they were not in favor of in the past. I hear what you're saying, Woody, yeah.
But I don't understand why Rich Paul wouldn't want to send him to 3 teams that actually want to have workouts with him, and they won't do it. He's only been seen by at the home court of the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers. And so they are trying to sway him to one of those 2 teams, and I think that's a mistake. I don't know that they should play together. The Griffeys played together, but that was later in both of their careers when they played in the outfield together. We'd like to see.
What do you mean? It was when Ken was finishing his career and when Junior was breaking into his career. That's the only time they could have played. What do you, Kevin Blackistone?
And that was a very cool thing, and that's
Exactly.
what we're trying to have happen here. So I would just say this, there's been a lot of criticism about Bronny James and whether or not he's an NBA talent, whether or not he can even play in the NBA. And maybe Rich Paul has listened to that and decided, as he pointed out, that he's going to try to find the team or teams in the league where it might be best for a fit for Bronny James. And he has a pretty good track record of that in terms of the names that he laid out there, like Brandon Boston, Chris Livingston, some people who you didn't necessarily think were NBA talent. Or even up in Milwaukee with Jen was Marjon Beauchamp, who they figured out a way to get into an NBA lineup and make a contribution. So I'm going to give I'm not going to have any doubts about what Rich Paul is doing right now, given that track record.
Woody Page, score was going down. Holy diver there for Bronny James Dio. Here's the video that Kevin was alluding to. This is one of my favorite moments in sports and in father-son, abilities here. This was the Griffies. This is it. This is my childhood. I love it. yeah, history lesson, kids. So they played in the same outfield, and then they, later in the season, hit back-to-back home runs. That's the dream. Maybe I'm a fool for wanting to see it with LeBron and Bronny, but that would be great. It was better for baseball when it happened. It could be in the best interest of the NBA, too. Around the Horn moves on.
Both have a three-pointer in the same game.
WNBA action this afternoon. Sky 83, Wings 72, a league record set. What was it? Consecutive double-doubles by a rookie, Angel Reese, her 7th straight. This one was a monster, 16 and 18. Spirited discussion this year, this month, and even this week, David Dennis Jr., you were on the show where you thought this Rookie of the Year race was getting tight between Reese and Clark, of course. The news this week, Cameron Brink out for the year. She's now out of it. Jackson Edwards involved. Do you have Reese ahead, Rookie of the Year, after today's monster game?
For all that's been made about Caitlin Clark's turnover struggles and the times we've seen her get clamped up at different times throughout the season, she still is averaging 15.55, a block and a steal. Nobody in WNBA history has averaged that. And so I would still put her in the lead for Rookie of the Year, but man, oh man, it's getting closer by the day. Angel Reese is accumulating monster stats by her own right. She leads rookies in rebounds and steals and PER and win shares and double-doubles. In games like this, 16 and 18, and the way that she is stepping up defensively puts her right there. I think it's still, earlier this week I said 70-30. I think it's closer to 60-40. And if they're both playing at this level, we have a real Rookie of the Year race gearing up by the end of this season.
Blackstone, do you possibly put Reese ahead after today's game?
No shame in putting the 410's finest, Angel Reese, in front of this list. I mean, she is leading the entire league in a positive, and that's offensive rebounding. Caitlin Clark is leading the entire league in a negative, which is turnovers. So there is that. Give credit to Caitlin Clark because her team has a better record and has beaten the Sky. Give credit also to her for having a better shooting percentage, although that's from the three-point line, a little bit more difficult, but you would think that Angel Reese would have a better shooting percentage being so close to the glass. She needs to do better than
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. The 410, you're giving credit for Angel Reese, as you should, born and raised in Maryland. You know, the zip code right next to that could have drafted her, and then you would have had a
Don't get me
situation.
started. Do not get me started.
Woody Page, to you on this Rookie of the Year race.
Yeah, Reese is ahead at this point, but what makes the WNBA more exciting this year is that the two of them are going to be fighting for Rookie of the Year. So far in games against each other, 2-0, Caitlin Clark has the lead there. But in the last two games, she's had 40 points, 15 assists, 15 rebounds.
Yes, yeah.
If she can continue to hook out with that, I think that it's going to be close down to the very
All
end.
right, but you said
Maybe
did you say
is
Reese
ahead
has the
today.
lead right now because of this double streak she's on?
Today.
All right, for today,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, they're playing games in the afternoon. Jen Latta, how about you?
You guys have thrown around a lot of percentages. Let me give you another one. Less than 50% of WNBA games played this season.
Right.
I think it's way too early to be having this conversation seriously, but they both are growing in their own individual roles. I love the feistiness that she is playing with, meaning Angel Reese. But I also agree with what Kevin said about the turnovers for Caitlin Clark. She needs to get that under control. What's going to be super important, guys, is when these two play each other. Because if they're both winning their individual stats, it will be who outperformed the other when they went head-to-head. And by the way, they're doing that this Sunday in Chicago. I plan on being at that game and seeing up close and
there it is.
personal.
It's only her second show. She's already flexing the I will be there. Although it is only your second show. Don't tell us that we can't have a fun conversation while we're having a fun conversation. Let's move on. Fever on a 3-game win streak, and last night it was a 3-headed monster. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Caitlin Clark, of course. Kevin Blackistone, around the horn to you. Buy or sell the Fever turning it around with this 3-game winning streak?
Oh boy, look at the calendar in terms of the teams they've played. But look, there are 12 teams in the NBA. They are 12th in net rating. They are 12th in defensive rating. They are 8th in offensive rating. If you want to talk about a team that's turning around, look at the Lynx, who won 5 in a row and are top 3 in all the.
Okay, that's true too. But again, can we answer the question that we're asking here? Are the Fever turning it around, Woody Page? Have they unlocked Aaliyah Boston? Clark having better games?
As the only person on this panel wearing a shirt that watched the game last night, I would tell you that they are turning it around. Even though they've beaten bottom feeders, KB, one thing that you missed out with all that conversation is they are a playoff team currently. After that awful start that they had, the way they've come back, they had to play 11 games in 20 days. Now they're only playing 4 in 16 games, so they have an opportunity now to practice together, insert some new offensive techniques. They got Boston and Clark working together. They had 17 picks in their last game, and God goodness, what they're doing, 4 players in double-figure scoring.
They had 17. How many in their last game? 17 what? Picks? You're counting the screens they're setting. Woody Page, incredible. Stat king. Jen Latta, have the Fever turned it around?
For the record, I was also wearing a shirt while I watched the game. I don't know if anyone thought that was the reality for anyone other than Woody Page. But I digress. You mentioned Aaliyah Boston. She's coming on, obviously. There's been a lot of attention on Caitlin Clark, but it's the two of them working together that has this team improving. Yes, they had a very tough schedule early on. Their most recent opponents have been much easier. You can't control who's in front of you. This team is growing. The chemistry is getting better. And Woody was talking about the pick and roll. Yes, they are using the pick and roll more effectively lately. That will be something they will lean on.
Woody was right. I just never heard somebody counting the number of picks that David Dennis Jr. Love it, Woody.
I was wearing a Snuggie last night when I was watching the game, so I guess that doesn't count the same. The Fever actually seem to be the same team that we've seen. It's just the schedule and the same teams they've been playing have worked in their favor. They're still 2-8 against teams that are above 500 and 4-2 against teams that are below 500. They played bad teams, but the benefit of this is this allows them to work on their chemistry and get better. Aaliyah Boston, 2 20-point games in that 3-game winning streak. Her and Caitlin Clark are zipping around that court and passing the ball to each other. They have that chemistry. It may not mean much this season. Next season, they're going to be a lot better.
Jen Latta. David Dennis Jr., the rookie, going out in her second career show. It's a Woody Page, Kevin Blackistone showdown next. Yankees-Orioles this afternoon in the Bronx. Maybe it's feisty. It's been a feisty series. Let's focus on Gerrit Cole's performance last night. This was his return after missing the whole start of the season. Strong return. Didn't qualify for a win as the Orioles got the best of him. Yankees tied it up late. Orioles won it in extra innings. Woody, who had the best night last night?
A win is a win for the Orioles, but a return of Gerrit Cole is a win going on and on for the Yankees. Him coming back and being effective, throwing 60 pitches, that's a great start for him for the season.
Kevin Blackistone.
But this was the Orioles' 4th win in 6 tries this year against the Yankees. Now they're 1.5 games back. They did it with Gerrit Cole on the mound. They've got to feel good about themselves, saying, hey, we can beat their ace just like we beat them without him.
Yankees have the division lead. Who won the division last year? Orioles. Who's winning the head-to-head this year? The Orioles. Point. Kevin Blackistone. Showdown 2. All SEC College World Series. I know you love it, Woody Page. Tennessee versus Texas A&M. Somehow they didn't play in the regular season. Only one game versus each other in the conference tournament. Tennessee won that. KB, who's been more impressive getting here?
Well, I'm going to look at the really long road to getting here, and that's Tennessee, who's actually been blown up in the College World Series the last few years. Now they've finally gotten this opportunity. I think they're going to carry it through.
Woody Page?
Of course, KB, it's going to be Rocky Top on top of baseball. They haven't been to the finals since
this is their alma mater,
1951.
Woody.
They have 177 homers. They're close to breaking the record in college baseball and winning the championship.
We never see a one seed in the College World Series, by the way, winning it all. It's amazing. Woody Page, you look like you're a scout at the College World Series. Pencil in hand and with that shirt of yours. It's enough for the FaceTime today.
70 years ago, my dad said on my birthday, "Son, I'm taking you on the train from Memphis to St. Louis to see the Cardinals play the Giants, and you get to see your favorite two players, Stan Musial and a kid named Willie Mays." Guess what? 10 years later, 60 years ago, my dad said, "We're going to St. Louis. We're going to see the San Francisco Giants and the Cardinals," and I saw Willie Mays play with Cepeda and all of those great players with the Giants.
Favorite player of your youth, right, Woody? Willie Mays.
Yep.
See, he brings out the